You're listening to the Shift Work Podcast, episode 46. Today, you're going to learn that the next phase of business growth comes from a lesson that was taught by the 2021 Jacksonville Jaguars, who are the losingest team in the NFL season. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Luke Lehman, and you're listening to the only podcast for high-growth entrepreneurs rooted in business strategy and tactics as we discover the habits of high-performance leaders and dive deep into brain science. With over 2 decades leading high-performance teams, from fighter pilot to CEO, I'm excited to join you in your entrepreneurial journey. Shift the mindset needed to build your empire, keep more money in your pocket, and enjoy every day of the journey. Welcome to Shift Work. Hey, my friends, welcome back to another episode of the Shift Work Podcast. Today, we're going to take a look at what change you need to make inside your life or inside your business to become the next version of what your business needs from you. And we're going to do that by taking a look at the 2021 Jacksonville Jaguars. Why? Because they were the losingest team in the NFL. But even in being the losingest team in the NFL in 2021, they still filled up mostly to capacity the 67,164 seat capacity TIAA Bank Field Stadium. Because the Jacksonville Jaguars are a football team, but most importantly, they're a business and they're an enterprise. But what the Jacksonville Jaguars know and what you need to know is that they're playing the long game. And if I introduce to you the name Shahid Khan right now, there's a high chance that you don't know who Shahid Khan is. But he is a billionaire sports tycoon, and he owns the Jacksonville Jaguars as well as the Fulham Football Club. He is the co-owner of the American wrestling promotion All Elite Wrestling, and he was featured on the cover of Forbes magazine in 2012, and in November of 2021, his personal net worth was $9 billion. Do you think that Shahid Khan cared that the Jacksonville Jaguars finished the season at 3-14? It's a business. Yet despite being the losingest team in the NFL, there were still raving fans that showed up and consumed $16 Bud Lights at the stadium, that ate hot dogs, clogged up their arteries, because football is a business. And it's no different than your business. So today we're going to look at the changes that you need to make to level up your game, to make the room for the next version of what your life is going to hold for you by taking a look at that Jacksonville Jaguars lineup. Now, there's a couple of interesting pieces about the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'll disclaim that I'm not actually a very big NFL football fan. By Sunday afternoon, I'm in recovery phase, and I'm taking the time to spend with my children. Now, we enjoy watching football on Saturday afternoon during the football season in late fall, but by Sunday afternoon, we should be outside. We should be looking for the ways that we can engage with each other. So for me, I'm not actually a very big football fan, but I am very, very curious about what we can learn from them. I'll spoil the surprise for you today. As entrepreneurs, what we often do is we find ourselves filling the wrong role inside our businesses. It starts when we're young, when we're solopreneurs, or we begin to engage in something inside the business that's comfortable to us. We find capacity in the things that we know that we can do most efficiently, and then we focus on those things. If we're salespeople, we do sales stuff. If we're operations folks, we do operations stuff. Developers do developmental stuff. Accountants do accounting stuff. But as entrepreneurs, when we have to elevate our role, we find ourselves doing the things in the business that we aren't that great at. Business is simple. It truly is. That doesn't mean it's easy, but there's just not much complexity. I think about the offense of a football team like the sales and marketing efforts of a company. I think about the defense often like the operations component. And then the ticket collectors, the financing component. It's really just that easy. We want to sell, we want to deliver, and then we want to account for the money. So we're going to take a look at what this 2021 football team looks like, and I'm going to tell you right now that I bet you inside your business that you are filling the wrong role, and this is a reminder to you right now that you need to level up your game. And it might mean that you're in the wrong seat, but it also might mean that you're on the wrong team. So let's look now at the 2021 Jacksonville Jaguars headed by Urban Meyer. You might know Urban Meyer if you follow sports because Urban Meyer took the Gators to 2 national championship victories during the 2006 and 2008 seasons before he temporarily retired in 2011. But let's go way back to how Urban Meyer started his career. Urban Meyer started by playing defensive back at the University of Cincinnati. And that's much like how you started your business. Most entrepreneurs and small business owners started their business because they were very good at something. They found a skill set that they could easily replicate. They found that they didn't need to do that for someone else. They found that they could make more money by doing it themselves. That's like playing defensive back at the University of Cincinnati. So what then transpired after that? Urban Meyer continued on a career of multiple coaching evolutions to where he became the head coach of the Gators of the University of Florida and pinnacled at the height of his career, winning 2 national championships. Some would say it's time to go into retirement. It's time to enjoy it. But Urban Meyer then decided that he was going to take a hand at the NFL. That is a likely transition. We've seen it before, and it makes sense when you look at the progression. If you're going to go throughout your career, you're going to go from player to coach, and then you're going to level up the coaches to becoming an NFL head coach. Why? Because that's where the money is. But is it true? You look at some of the winningest college football coaches who have giant salaries. Nick Saban is one of those. The point is that at any point of your career, you can stay put and you can become a master of your craft and you can become very wealthy in doing that. But the likelihood is that you have to level up. And the truth is, you frankly can't play defensive back at the University of Cincinnati forever. Why? Because at the end of your eligibility, they're going to tell you to move on. And then at some point at the end of your playing career, your body's not going to hold up anymore, and you're not going to be able to take the hits that you used to take unless perhaps you're Tom Brady. But in your business, you're going to have to move on. And we want to move on inside our business to highly levered activities. That's the first key that you need to realize, is that you need to be able to pull a lever inside your business where you can stop exchanging your time for money. So what are those levers that you can pull as you begin to take the next roles inside your organization? You can begin to pull levers like unification, driving culture, making team cohesiveness work, making B players become A players, taking A players into the next challenge. But before we get too far into what it takes to run a successful business, let's continue to look at what challenges faced the 2021 Jacksonville Jaguars as the losingest team in NFL. The quarterback in 2021 was a highly recruited quarterback named Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence is actually, in my mind, one of the most phenomenal football players right now. What I love about Trevor Lawrence is that he's very comfortable talking about his success and letting enough be enough, and the fact that he doesn't grind it out. Trevor Lawrence goes on record often about the way that he prepares and the way that he has become such an elite athlete. And you've heard me talk about often the fact that grinding is not the answer. I don't want to go to war against productivity. But at the end of the day, you and I have the same 24 hours in the day. And if we're not applying our levers to those, and we're frankly just exchanging our time for money, we are becoming the lowest performing version of ourselves. It's one of the things that I think about when I look at medicine that's so interesting. Doctors make a decent income and a decent quality of life. But at the end of the day, they're still only changing time for dollars. And there's no way that they can get away from that. They need to see patients. They need to engage in clinical trials. They need to write prescriptions. They're still exchanging their time for money. And as I look at that level of preparation, that 8 years or so that it takes to become a doctor, and yes, you can become a specialist, but can you imagine being a surgeon and breaking your finger? Or being a surgeon and getting into an automotive accident where you can no longer stand for extended periods of time, and all of that craft is now gone because you can't do it. Entrepreneurship is the ability to pull levers. So what happened to Trevor Lawrence? Well, Trevor Lawrence was in his rookie season at the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had not yet been able to see what it took to lead an NFL team. He had Urban Meyer as his head coach. Urban Meyer was new to the NFL scene. But you can see how the concoction of a team with rookie players and new head coaches, less than strong offensive linemen, could lead to a 3-14 season. But does that mean that the Jacksonville Jaguars were a bad football team? No, it means that they're in a building cycle. And that's the second point that you need to realize, that if the business isn't functioning the way that you want it to function today, it's because you're in a building cycle. And you need to be analyzing the key roles that you have inside your business, the roles that you're applying, the roles that you're leading, and the way that you can pull levers inside your own business. So when we look at these key drivers inside the Jacksonville Jaguars, we see that Trevor Lawrence was a junior quarterback. We know that Urban Meyer, while being a very winning college football coach, had not yet sprung to success on the NFL scene. And what happened after that? Well, we can look very quickly at history and we can see that Urban Meyer got sacked. He was replaced by Doug Peterson. And now the Jacksonville Jaguars, at the time of this recording, are still having a 3-win season. But guess what? They're still selling tickets. The ticket booth isn't drying up. And the offense and the defense are still working together, and they are still creating in unison the same components of what happens in our business. So now let's turn to what happens inside our business. All too often, entrepreneurs find themselves filling the roles of what they know to be comfortable. If you're the quarterback, you want to do quarterback things. If you're the defensive back, you want to do defensive back things. But in reality, what your business needs, the quickest shortcut to success, is for you to elevate yourself to the highest caliber and highest level that you can perform. So when we look at it in the same organizational structure as a college football program or an NFL football program, our business really has 3 levels. Whether you're a small business or a large business, it really functions the same level. There are the employees that do the tasks. There are the directors or the officers of the company, and then there is the board. Now, notice that I'm not even talking about who owns the company, what the equity stack looks like in the company. I'm simply talking about what the 3 levels are. The board of directors tells the officers of the company how to manage and how to execute inside their company. The officers inside the company lead the employees on a daily basis against their mission or vision statement to generate revenue in a for-profit manner. So the question then becomes, for most small businesses, is where do you function? You see, for me, as owners of my companies, I know that I have an equity position in the company, but that really has nothing to do with the day-to-day management of the company. What has to do with the day-to-day management is how I function as a board member. What directions do I set? What do I give to the officers of the company? And then as an officer of the company, how do I lead the employees? Now, for most small businesses, and likely for you listening to this podcast, you're all of those things. And the most important piece of that is that you spend most of your time as an employee. But what skills are you doing as an employee? Are you doing bookkeeping? Are you doing basic accounting? Are you doing marketing, sales, fulfillment, operations, delivery? The more of those lower level tasks that you fill, the less profitable that you can be inside your business. Now, you've heard that before, but you're hearing it again, and you're hearing it again at just the right time for you, because it is time for you to level up. It's time for you to at least allocate a portion of your time to start thinking about what a board member would do. So what would a board member do? A board member looks 10 years out to say, where is the company growing to? How do we allocate resources? What does the strategy look like? They then delegate that down to the officers of the company. They say, here's what I want you to focus on. Here's the operational efficiencies that I want you to drive. Here's the revenue targets that I want you to hit. And then they are resourced to be able to go out and do those tasks. And then finally, we build the team that's right-sized for the organization and the way that we're growing. There's two key components that entrepreneurs face. The first is we face the question of, will it work? And then second, we face the question of, will it last? Will it work? Will it last? Will it work? Will it last? At any given point in business, you are faced with likely high growth, but also contraction. If you look at Delta Airlines right now, Delta Airlines is in a very tumultuous and weird position. Think about it. In 2020, demand shrunk to near zero. In 2022, we now have inflation rising, cost of goods rising, logistics challenges rising, demand for air travel high, but coach airfare cost $1,000 a ticket. That used to be the premium that you would have to pay to be in the front of the bus. They are absolutely in this tumultuous journey, whether or not they think they can constrain or whether they can expand. So your business is really no different than their business. Your business is no different than my business. But are you thinking like the chairman of the board at Delta Airlines, or are you thinking like a lineman throwing bags onto an airplane? I am guilty of this often. And the difference is I take a critical analysis at what high value or high levered activities that I can do inside my business to be able to function at a higher capacity. And when I find myself mired into the details of anything, I know I am not functioning at my highest level of myself. So what is the highest level that you can achieve? Highest level of achievement comes when you can lever your activities. And that's why all these gurus out teaching massive action have it all wrong, and they're leading you to absolute demise. Don't get me wrong. I work hard. But I work hard at what I can lever. I work hard at where I can take my efforts and energies and make them multiply. So what does that look like? That looks like being critical about the capacities that are being performed inside our company. Oftentimes what happens at all businesses is you have employees that do multiple things. Maybe they do quality assurance in addition to production. Maybe they do sales in addition to delivery. But what is it that they primarily do? And for high growth companies, for those that are actually on the trajectory of making greater than 50% year-on-year gains, that constantly changes. So someone that might have been in the seat for 1 year performing a task very well needs that next challenge. And they need that challenge because the business is taking the next step. So your job as you elevate is to get out of the weeds, and we know that. But what can you do to be able to elevate? Number one, stop exchanging time for money. If you take an inventory of where you spend your time and minutes on a daily basis and figure out which of those activities are $10 an hour tasks or $25 an hour tasks or $5,000 an hour tasks, shed the bottom and replace them with the top. And that analysis, that constant state of self-awareness, of being present to where the business is growing and to where you're focusing your time and energy, is where you can apply the lever. But you change as well. Having children, the children growing and becoming the next version of themselves. My children are facing that transition now where they no longer need me to the capacity that they did when they were children. It frees me up a little bit as a parent to be able to focus my time and energy on other components. But inside my business, I have to constantly analyze, what does the business need? And that's the challenge that I face right now in growing my business, is taking a look at where I can apply my energy. And the question that I ask myself most often is, what would the business need from me if I were simply a hired gun? If I didn't have equity in it, if I was only the officer, what would the board tell me to do? Or if I were only the board, what would I say? And here's a good example. If the company has been growing at 30% year on year, and I want to grow it at 50% year on year, if I'm the board member, I want to think about what resources I need to allocate to be able to make that direction change. Is it possible? Is it probable? If I'm optimizing for bottom line revenue, it's likely not possible for me to also increase the growth of the company 20% year on year without allocating new assets. So if I'm thinking like the board member, it's all possible. Now I'm simply solving for what resources are needed to be able to grow the company. And this is when I go into thinking often like a venture capital company. Have you noticed how venture capitalists just seem to throw a grip of cash at something? If you take a look at Airbnb or Uber, you can see that they threw the kitchen sink at the growth. All kinds of new people and labor dollars expended, allocation of resources. It is possible, it's just not profitable, which leaves us in this entrepreneur's plight. If we have to think about applying now the resource constraints of being an equity holder, of someone who's not willing to take the risk, now we put the realistic constraints of the equity holders onto the board, and then the board gives the direction to the directors. But do you see how that balance plays out? So when we find ourselves mired in the day-to-day tasks, we find ourselves functioning too low on the totem pole. If we go back now to the Jacksonville Jaguars as the losingest team in the NFL in 2021, what did we see there? We saw elevation of roles. We saw a new quarterback that's going to come in and do the blocking and tackling. But you know the role that Trevor Lawrence will fill will not be NFL quarterback forever. Trevor Lawrence will play for a season as the quarterback. And I don't mean physically the 2021-2022 NFL season. I mean the season of his life that he has allocated. For me, I had a season of life where I was a fighter pilot. But that season of life ended and gave way to a new version. I had a season of life where I was a startup business owner, where I was bootstrapping, where I was working the long hours. And then I had a season of my life where I found the highly levered activities. I found that I could borrow from someone else's knowledge pool and be able to apply against my own business. One of the things that's probably the most interesting that I happily share about was my lack of reading. I was probably 38 years old before I really became a professional reader. And it dumbfounded me at the level of naivete that I had faced the world with, that the access to information was literally at the tip of my fingertips. And if I could just put myself in a position to slow down long enough, I could access someone else's well-crafted and well thought out productions and masterpieces into what it took to grow businesses. So how do you then go from Trevor Lawrence to Urban Meyer? You see, Trevor Lawrence is consuming information right now about what it's taking to be Urban Meyer. He's learning those components, but he doesn't know them all. He really doesn't know what it takes to be a defensive person. Perhaps the last time that Trevor Lawrence played defense was in high school, when he was such a stellar athlete that he was able to muscle onto both sides of the ball because his natural athletic prowess and gift allowed him to do so. And then as he leveled up, he had to specialize. He had to become more focused on being the best quarterback that he could be. And the next version of him will likely take a look at what Urban Meyer looks like. Urban Meyer had to make the transition from defense to now saying, I have to see the full picture. And that's what's happening inside your business. There was the focus area that you started with. You were really good at production, or you have a natural gift or knack for sales, or you see the marketing component, or numbers are your thing. But the further that you go into doing your thing, the less likely you are to succeed. What made Urban Meyer able to win the 2006 and 2008 football national championships in college was because he surrounded himself with experts. He found offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, linebackers coach, quarterback coach, and he was able to build the team. He created a culture of winning. He created a dominance mindset that enabled people to become a team of teams. And that is when you can elevate, when you can move into that head coach role, which is why I talk so much about leaders being coaches now. I truly do believe that the advent and the evolution of what we need in business is for us to change ourselves away from managers into coaches. And what's the difference? A leader functioning as a coach helps someone to find the best in themselves, vice a manager simply outlining tasks and responsibilities and key outcomes and metrics and KPIs and OKRs. But when you can help someone become the future best version of themselves, now you can build raving fans inside your business. So here's how this works. When you grow, when you learn new capacities, you need to learn just enough that you can lead it. And then when you can lead it, now you can expand it and you can hire to it. Marketing was one of those things for me. I literally, a decade ago, probably a little bit more than that, maybe 15 years ago, said, I don't understand the value of marketing. I literally didn't understand it. I thought that there was literally a cold client that comes in and now says, I want to buy from you, and here's the sales process, and didn't understand anything about the know, like, and trust model. I set out to then learn why marketing was so valuable and how the customer acquisition journey progressed, about brain science and human behavior, which is what the impetus of this whole podcast is about. It's about applying the brain science into the persuasion and influence for you to be able to convince other people that the way that you view the world is the best view of the world. It's about the business strategy and tactics. And yeah, we give tactics on this podcast. I'm going to help you grow your business by doing things that you can apply today. But it's also about being a high growth leader. And part of being a high growth leader is being constantly critical of the way that you view the world and elevating yourself and becoming the future best version of yourself and leaving behind a trail of better human beings and realizing that this is your championship life and there are no practice days. I say the same thing so often, because it's about elevating your game. It's about becoming the Urban Meyer. And I'm not saying that because Urban Meyer lost a season at 3-14. I'm saying that because Urban Meyer had perfected the craft. He went from defensive back to a coach, to a head coach, to an NFL head coach. Perhaps he'll go down and people will remember that Urban Meyer wasn't all that great as an NFL coach. And perhaps even they might forget that he had actually won 2 national championships before that at the University of Florida. But I didn't forget that. What I can do is I can take the lesson and I can see that I need to elevate, that I need to make the transition. That transition for me was from CEO to board member. And then realizing what functions as a shareholder I would then impart. And then becoming an investor in other people's companies so that I can look at their companies and apply the same level of rigor that I have applied for decades as a high performance leader and helping you to grow your business. In this podcast, I want you to succeed. Why? Because it's selfish. Because at some point, you and I will do business together in some capacity. At some point, you're going to find something that I say so valuable that it's going to change your life, and you will become a future better version of yourself. And you will do so in leaving behind a trail of better human beings. And that will be my legacy, that I helped you to become a future better version of yourself, to elevate to that last level, the highest level in the rung. And we come back now to where we started. Shahid Khan, Pakistani-American billionaire businessman worth $9 billion, cover of Forbes magazine, owns multiple entities. How do you think Shahid Khan looks at being the losingest NFL team in 2021? Do you think Shahid Khan loses sleep about losing? Of course not. It's a game for him, and he's playing the long game. Because life is about experiences. And inside our business, we go through these growth phases. We go through these contraction phases. We go through these struggles. But when you can realize that you are playing the long game, you can elevate to the Shahid Khan level of mindset in the world. And when you realize that you're stop trading time for dollars and you begin focusing on these highest leveraged activities, you begin to win the long game. So what is it that you need to do inside your business right now? Perhaps it's that you need to get your life in order first. Perhaps it's that there's changes that you need to make on your physical well-being, that you need to invest in your relationships as well, so that you can show up better inside your business. Perhaps your health and your relationships are so suitcased up that you can begin focusing on some of those wealth building activities. Perhaps you've gotten your business to a state that it produces free cash flow, and you can begin to reinvest some of that free cash flow in other asset-based or revenue-producing, cash flow-producing assets, like other businesses, like real estate, or even the stock market, or commodities, foreign exchange currencies. It's a game, my friends. We're playing the game. So I ask you, what do you need to do today to level up? Are you playing like Trevor Lawrence? Are you playing like Urban Meyer? Are you playing like Shahid Khan? Or perhaps you're actually playing like Sean McVay, who became the head coach of the LA Rams at 30 years old and went on to be the NFL champs in 2021. You see, it really doesn't matter if you're a Super Bowl champ. It doesn't matter if you're the losingest team. It's about playing the long game. So where are you inside your business today? I know that you're choosing to play the long game, but I want you to realize that you can have a losing season without having a losing business. And it doesn't mean that you are failing. It just means you are falling. It doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that you fell. So make the changes, elevate yourself, continue to look at what changes that you need to make inside your business to become the future best version of yourself. The money will come. The money always comes. In fact, what happens in business all too often is we get in those seasons of will it work or will it last? Will it work? Will it last? And then when we stop long enough to take inventory of where we are, we see that our $10,000 payrolls became $100,000 payrolls. Our $100,000 payrolls became $1 million payrolls. And what happened was you leveled up. What happened was that you got comfortable with the level of risk. You became able to make decisions more rapidly. You began to think like a shareholder, like a board member. Because when you start making those decisions, you start thinking about what can become possible. And when you think about what can become possible, now you begin to solve for it as if it is predestined, as if it has already occurred. You move away from the limitations, you move out of the day-to-day laborer inside your business, and you start to think more globally. So the last thing that I'll leave you with today is this. Do you think that the 2021 Jacksonville Jaguars believed that it wasn't going to work, that they should all throw in the towel? Should they close the franchise doors of the Jacksonville Jaguars because they were the losingest team in the NFL in 2021? Or did they view it as a building season? Did they view it as having a rookie quarterback who now had experience? And if you were to look pragmatically at that team, do you think it's equally as pragmatic that the Jacksonville Jaguars could become NFL champions in the next 10 years or so? I think so. We've seen losingest teams in NFL sports become the winningest teams. We've seen hero makers come out. We've seen players transition. So if it's possible to go from the losingest team to the winningest team, what needs to change to do that? And inside your own business, what needs to change for you to become more profitable, for you to become more growth-oriented, for you to be able to hire more people, for you to be able to introduce new product lines? That's the challenge. And as you elevate yourself to become more aware of what's possible for you, you can simply begin to think like those board members. I want you to keep winning, my friends. I hope you have a phenomenal week. Keep doing the work, and I'll see you right back here next week for another episode of the Shift Work Podcast. Thanks for listening. If you found value in today's episode, please take the time to leave a review so that we can build our community of high-growth entrepreneurs. If you'd like to stay connected with me, go to www.lukelehman.com to find a link to your social media channel of choice.